All right, Andor.
Oh yeah, Andor.
Andor is a fucking roller coaster.
It is a roller coaster. So I thought the first 6 episodes too much. That's too much.
Yeah.
But episodes 7, 8, 9, which spoilers is the Gorman massacre, I thought were fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah.
To the point, like I thought that was the best Disney Star Wars I've seen.
Or something like that.
Something similar to that.
Yeah. 10, 11, 12 were pretty darn good, actually.
Yeah, they were good. They were a solid, like, kind of transition to Rogue One.
So, hot damn, it's the same thing that happened in season 1.
Yeah.
Where you're like, man, this is sleepy. This is, how do we, I don't know about these characters. I don't know their names. I don't care about Deidre, the ISB agent. And, you're just kind of like, what's this got to do with anything? And yeah, you admire the cinematography. Yeah, you admire the set design. Yeah, look, we've been through The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew was the Goonies, right? And so, I mean, that's a little more Star Wars-y, but I would say it was not very Star Wars-y at all. And the thing I've always said about Andor was like, like that prison escape episode in season 1 was really good. It's just that it doesn't feel like Star Wars, man. Like none of this feels like This is like you go to an Italian restaurant and they serve you something completely different and you're like, it's good though, right? Yeah. You're like, well, yeah, but why? What's with the branding outside?
Yeah.
Is Star Wars so dead that you have to depart from it completely and do something entirely different? That said, geez, this latter half of the season was so good that it's hard to quarrel with.
Yeah.
And I would say that the last like 2 episodes, probably, especially the last one, it starts to, because it dovetails pretty nicely into Rogue One. I would say it starts to, like, especially by the time they get that droid, they get K2SO from Rogue One in there. It starts to feel a bit like Star Wars now. It starts to feel like an adventure and the Death Star is getting built and,
Yeah, when they're on Yavin and you have Mon Mothma and you have new Jimmy Smits.
Yeah, Bail Organa. Yeah, they recast Bail Organa. That was a real shock.
Yeah, I guess is Jimmy Smits too old now, or is he?
Well, isn't that interesting? I mean, like to me, the prequels feel like yesterday, but we just had the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith in theaters. But Hayden Christensen can still play that character, and they don't have to de-age him too wildly. And what really took me by surprise was they have director Krennic from Rogue One in some of these episodes. And they definitely they had to put on some smoothing makeup and they had to de-age him. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like didn't Rogue One just come out? It was like, no, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I could see they dyed his hair and he looks like they made him up, but he's still great though. He's
a fantastic character. I mean, I could do with more of him. If they did a season 3, which I heard they are not going to do.
No, this is it.
But I mean, I'm sure they said that the first time too. If you're a streaming platform, at some point, isn't it almost more worth maybe it's not so much about hours watched as it is like, hey, that is just a very well thought of show on our streaming platform.
The problem is that this cost these 2 seasons $750 million.
Holy shit!
That's like more money than anything.
Why did they spend that? I hear that Kathleen Kennedy loves Tony Gilroy.
She must, but yeah. I mean, to be fair, the money is on the screen. These are some of the best sets, the best props. When Stellan Skarsgård he's in his little antique shop and he's got his in the back he's got that radio thing that he's pouring acid on. Everything is so tactile
and imaginative and creative.
And it feels lived in. It feels like old Star Wars where things actually feel like they're in that world.
Because they have to come up with other stuff what would a hospital ward look like in Star Wars? And I hear that Dave Filoni is not thrilled by all the Andor love. This might be a bullshit rumor. Yeah. But supposedly he is well, it's not really the future. That's not what we're... Supposedly, Tony Gilroy kind of got grandfathered into this whole thing, and people were poo-pooing Filoni, which normally I wouldn't have any issue with that. But I kind of get it, where I'm like, well, but we're trying to do I mean, it's been shitty so far, but I can understand being we're trying to do a unified thing. Yeah. And then this thing comes along and it's the stormtrooper tried to rape me. And you're
that was a big controversy a few weeks ago we didn't get to, but yeah, I think that was overblown mostly, but because the whole thing is weird. Like the whole thing is a
Well, in other words, they decided to take Star Wars, get rid of everything about it that makes it Star Wars, and then be like, we're just going to use this empty husk to tell an extremely dramatic dystopian story about fascism and about, government overreach and tyranny.
the nature of rebellion.
Yeah, how do uprisings begin? And, the Gorman Massacre, I think one of the things that makes it powerful, aside from the acting and the cinematography, the pacing, the rhythm, like all the stuff that goes into it. But it kind of just rings of these historical massacres, or the
French Revolution, obviously.
French Revolution, and yeah, exactly. People getting gunned down for speaking, and it just kind of conjures stuff that I think we all know. And Star Wars does that too, just not in the same way. It's just a different tone.
Like the way they played out was so cool because you have the Empire who's trying to get this mineral that's in Gorman, and so they have a propaganda that they're trying to do, but they're also trying to incite violence from the rebels that are there. And then the rebels kind of know that. Yeah. And they're also like, maybe we should let this happen.
Yeah, this Luthen character played by Stellan Skarsgård, his whole MO, to the ISB, the Empire, he's known as the Axis. There's somebody out there who's kind of the connecting, who's the intersection of all these uprisings. And it's him. He tells the young lady that he raises, we lose and we lose and we lose until we're ready. Because he's got, there's this underlying concept that if we can incite terrible things to happen, like Andor asks, is like, well, what happens if everybody just gets massacred on that planet? And he's like, then everybody will see that now, won't they? And they'll,
yeah.
So there's political strategy. So he's the ends justify the means type of guy. That's what makes his story powerful and his arc powerful, is that includes up to his own death. He's willing to die at the right moment for the right time to propel the right action.
Star Wars already did a stupid version of this in The Last Jedi. Remember when Benicio del Toro, stuttering Benicio del Toro's like, I sell weapons to both the Resistance and the First Order because they're the same size. It's like they did it like really stupid and quick in that. But this is like a way to do that kind of gray theming, but like actually like put a lot of work into it and really build it and really get to know all the like nuances and characters.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the reason that this gray theming works is because he's not actually gray.
Yeah.
In other words, he has Benicio del Toro, his motivation is what? To make money or something. And then that impacts the story how? Well, he tries to he's tempting fucking Finn? Not really. That doesn't really happen. In this case, it's more like
it's cheap, yeah.
Luthen has an objective. It's to topple the Empire. That's what he's after. He just knows like they're way too powerful and we're way too weak. That we're gonna have to use some fucking crazy tactics. We're gonna have to incite rebellion, and the only way you're gonna incite rebellion is to draw it out and make some of the tyranny more visible. Otherwise, it's gonna happen on in prisons where nobody notices, right? Or in prison camps or on distant planets. It was very interesting. I think it's like, that's kind of reminds me a little bit of like Breaking Bad, where you'd have two characters who are really smart. So, and that's much more compelling, where you're like, well, if they're both smart, how the hell is this going to end?
Yeah. And the Empire is great too, because they're filled with these bureaucrats. There's that bureaucratic evil that comes with that. But they're like, a lot of them are really cunning. But also, like, it's interesting when they fail, the thing they fear the most is their own empire. Like who's the old guy with the longer hair?
Like Padagast or something?
Padagast, whatever his name is. When he fails a certain point, he's just like, well, I know whatever the Empire will do to me is worse than death, so I'm going to kill myself.
Right.
Like, so it's really interesting.
In other words, they're tyrannized almost as much as anybody.
Yeah, within, but they're also complicit in the tyranny.
Yeah.
And obviously Deidre is a huge part of that as well, where her relationship with Cyril is really great, like where he's kind of like a true believer in the Empire. And then when he realizes that she's kind of cynically just, like pushing the for this massacre. He believes in what like some of the good things the Empire stands for.
Yeah, he thought the Empire was like a moral institution, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when she's like, oh, you took all the promotions, you took all this, and you'll be celebrated as a hero, and he's not having any of it because he actually believes in like the kind of the moral fiction behind what how the
he was successfully propagandized too, and it really wasn't about his own status. It was about having a better galaxy. I actually thought the Mon Mothma episode where she decides to go on the Senate floor and speak out against, and condemn the Emperor publicly and use her platform to try to incite uprising, and then kind of the excitement of Andor getting her off planet was like, I was very invested.
Oh yeah, that was a great episode. The thing the show does well is it does all that like spy mechanics and then couches it in the drama of it. I think the first 6 episodes get too lost in the mechanics.
A little Batman McGinsey.
Where it's just like, okay, it's like we have to build up the Gorman thing. We have to build up this. We have to build up that. But so it started to become too plotty. I think those first 6 episodes probably could have be cut down to 3 or something.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It was like you wouldn't want to cut them down too much because the Gorman Massacre is just simply, it's like the Battle of Helm's Deep. Like it simply doesn't work if you don't get all the chess pieces in line. But the question is, like, is the juice worth the squeeze with having to sit through? I mean, because those first 6 are kind of drags. There's a lot of plot. The characters, I think, at times get a little bit lost in that plot. The tone is very chill. I mean, it's, when people aren't getting raped. Like, people are mumbling and, it's kind of muddy. And
some of my favorite scenes from those first are just character ones, like when Cyril's having dinner with his mom and Deidre. There's a lot of fun character aspects to that. But yeah, it's...
Well, like sometimes... the beginning of a movie or the first few episodes of a show can be redeemed by a good arc, right? When I'm watching the mom scene with Deidre, I'm like, I don't really know why I'm watching this. Like, I don't know where this is going. And they could have done a lot more with the mom, but I love where it landed. Basically, it's a spoiler. Cyril dies, and all they do, they cut to his mom crying. Yeah. But it was like, that's actually perfect. That's like, because we got to know, like, he's got this weird thing with his mom. His mom is overreaching, but...
And then the Empire uses his death as a propaganda tool.
And she sees it for what it is. Yeah. Smart. Good stuff. And then, I think we were also feeling like Andor, the character, is not really like at the center of this necessarily. And I think that for me anyway, when I finally felt it took like 2 seasons. But when I finally felt connected with Andor himself, it was in the Mon Mothma episode when he was basically her escort off planet. And I was like, oh, like I kind of get the character now. I get like where he fits into things.
I think there was like a moment where, he's like his Bix brings him to that force healer. And there's something there where he's just like the ball of nerves that he is around this character.
He's really good. Yeah.
And when the force healer comes to him, and I like how they treat her as kind of like a tarot card reader or a crystal healer. Or something.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Even though like it's only been like 20 years since the Jedi.
Like, who's ever heard of this shit? And she prophesies over his life. Sometimes his performance was a little telenovela, though.
Yeah,
And without Luthen, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. Arriba.
I wanted to see how much he aged since Rogue One, so I did turn on the beginning of it just to see. He's actually aged pretty well.
They darkened his hair up a bit, I noticed, in these, because they kind of made his look really match Rogue One by the end of this.
Yeah.
And the whole Death Star thing kind of, and just when you think you're like, fucking Death Star, like it's in every one of these movies. I do think like, the development of a nuclear weapon, right? Like, that analogy, it kind of works.
Oh man, the sequel trilogy is so bad because then I'm thinking like, what went into Star Killer Base? It's like
ridiculous.
Where it's like we watched this whole series on Andor about like how hard, like they did a massacre to get the materials, like they did all these things to hide it, and then all of a sudden it's like we have a planet that's actually a Death Star. It's like, oh fuck this.
Annoying. JJ is like some of the worst for Star Wars between that and Palpatine, yeah, oh my God. But there was, one of the, we talk about set design, we talk about cinematography, and I always like to give a shout out to motivated cinematography and motivated editing. So those are two things that can be in your show or be in your movie that will really elevate it. And this must have been a really challenging shoot, honestly. Every scene I was like, man, like this probably took them a week to shoot this little scene, on this little location. And that, because some of it seemed like it was on location, some of it was in front of the volume, but it didn't look like a lot of it was in front of the volume. But even like when they did like the ISB boardroom, or with Krennic and that, for like, there was all this nice B-roll of like just Imperial artifacts, just little things that tell the story around the room.
Yeah.
When Luthen's daughter like is trying to get into the hospital to go kill him, like focusing on her wounded hand as she's walking, right, to remind us like, okay, that's something that is suspicious. And it's little like just always kind of decorating the scenes with like story information.
Yeah, and she had her like space age Crocs on. Everything. Yeah, it was so well done.
Like in those early episodes, and same with season 1. Like tonally, I would say this is more like Dune or something. It's more like, I think I may have said like, Logan's Run, or, the dystopic sci-fi. It's definitely sci-fi. They go easy on the aliens. Aliens are in this, but they kind of go easy on them.
Yeah, there's suddenly Gorman is very human and they're French.
Speak French. I'm pretty sure they speak French.
But they'll add an alien like when she's breaking into the hospital, like she's carrying around like a tiny shriveled up alien to like hide behind. And yeah,
I like that they never brought in Tarkin, but Tarkin was, with Gorman, there's this old story about him killing people just kind of
just to land on
indelicately. As far as like the rape thing, just to go back to that briefly, because Tony Gilroy had this quote about like, well, really, empires and tyranny and fascism, it's all about rape. I think he meant like metaphorically and literally and all the rest of it. And I'm sitting there going like, well, yes, technically that's true. technically in these kinds of like hellhole periods of history, there would have been, but like you don't need to put it in Star Wars. It's not a requirement. But at the same time, I kind of respect like, this is my vision for the show. This is the story. It involves this. We're saying the word out loud.
Well, like if she didn't say it out loud, it probably wouldn't even read to me as rape. Honestly, like it was like he comes on to her. She's like, no. They get into a fight, and then she hits him in the head. It doesn't, like, it's not like Game of Thrones where it's like, oh shit, like this is making me uncomfortable. But then she like says it out loud. It's like, oh, I guess that was sexual assault. But yeah, so I didn't think it was a big deal until all of a sudden Twitter's like making a huge deal of it.
I couldn't figure out what the approved opinion was, because I remember when Game of Thrones did it to redhead Sansa. People were outraged. They were like, that shouldn't be in a show. It's too traumatic or whatever. And now I feel like it's that same crew saying like, how dare you, Star Wars Theory? Like it needs to be in the show. I don't know.
Oh yeah, Star Wars Theory. He was the most vocal one. He was like, this shouldn't even be in the show.
Well, I think that's a fair enough statement. However, he said one thing where I was like, oh my God, that's so him. It's so stupid. He said something like, Vader wouldn't allow that. Stop.
It's like, I'll kill younglings, but rape, draw the line.
He's got it in his head that like Darth Vader draws the line at sexual assault. I mean, realistically, look, if I really want to go down the rabbit hole with fucking Star Wars Theory on this, it's probably the case that Vader does not want his Imperial officers raping like, I don't think that's Vader's MO, but I also don't think that it's in the Vader pamphlet.
And I don't think he's like monitoring every single like agent on the field if they're raping.
I think at some point he doesn't give a shit. Like, he's in a lava castle.
He's a half cyborg wizard who's like on another planet. I don't think he cares. He's got a fucking castle.
Yeah, it was like he's in a lava castle somewhere. Because there's so much kind of political like analogy and metaphor in this thing. I think it's really easy for some of the time I'm watching it going like, I can imagine the kind of people who are really, this is like LARP fuel, like some people are like, yeah, like I'm totally part of the Rebel Alliance. They really identify it. And I think somebody shared something that was like, oh, wait till you see this Gorman Massacre episode. Right wingers aren't going to like this. And I was like, I don't know how to tell you this, man. I think both sides of the political aisle see themselves in freedom fighters.
Yeah.
Like, I think they both are like...
And tyranny manifests itself on all sides.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody thinks of themselves as the ones who are going to break free of that tyranny. So I don't think it's like necessarily, cannibalized by one side. And also, I'll tell you, so when I'm sitting there going like, well, how you can't have rape in Star Wars? And I actually gave it a moment's thought, and I was like, has there ever been rape in Star Wars? And I was like, oh my God, there has been. Shadows of the Empire, the book, Prince Shizor, the weird green thing, had some kind of pheromone that he gave off, and he tried to seduce Leia into having sex with him, I think, is where that was headed before Chewie busted in. And said, save them both. Shizor too. I'll save you.
This big green boner.
Yeah. He has to go on the Millennium Falcon with a big green boner. Puts him in a bathtub, like an ice cold bathtub with C-3PO. Anyway, I think that there was a scene in Shadows of the Empire where, and I don't think you could call it anything other than an attempted rape. Anyway,
and they do put Leia in a slave outfit in Return of the Jedi for, I assume, sexual purposes.
So you know what? Yeah, fair enough.
And
you win. Vader wouldn't Vader have disallowed Jabba the Hutt from doing that? Is there some lore
Vader would not have allowed.
At this point, Vader, who deeply missed his mother, returned to the planet where she was taken from him, Tatooine. There he met with Jabba's gay uncle, Zorbo the Hutt. He took his robotic finger, stuck it in Zorbo's gay face, and said, no.
No raping.
No raping. You gay Hutt.
Anyway, there was something.
Oh, why?
Oh, Vader, I thought that I thought I was allowed to rape anybody on this giant planet. At which time Zorbo talked back to Vader. It was the last time he would ever be allowed to speak back to Lord Vader. Oh, Vader.
There was a guy. I actually think he does he podcasts with Star Wars Theory. His name is Stupendous Wave, and I remember he had this sing-songy way of speaking. That's why Vader went to Tatooine to save his mom. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
By the time of the Battle of Coruscant, there was scarcely a single galactic household that did not know the name Anakin. To the public, he was the hero with no fear, the savior of the Clone Wars, and the champion of the Republic.
Does he talk like that the whole time? Is he gonna stop that?
Is that the YouTube video?
Some of the hyper realism in this kind of reminded me of I've mentioned it before. There was by filmmaker Joseph Kahn. He made a video for YouTube starring James Van Der Beek and Katie Sackhoff as the red and pink Power Rangers, and it's called, I think it's just called Power Rangers, period, or something. And it's a hyper realistic, like there's drugs, there's death, there's sex, it's shot gorgeously. Tommy is like a mercenary, and it's meant to be tongue in cheek. And what made it ridiculous was there are people out there going like, they should do this. This is what it could be. I don't know why Hollywood doesn't just do this.
And Tony Gilroy did it.
Yeah, he's like, I'll fucking do that with Star Wars.
We're putting rape in it.
But could he somehow get Zorbo into season 3?
I can be your Axis. I heard Luthen died in season 2.
When I disliked it, I made this comment. And then I liked it. Now I feel this is why we shouldn't comment on series until we're done with them. This should be our new thing. We shouldn't do like first impressions. Fuck that. Because I'll get X-Men 97 accidentally. I saw some comments early on from the people who didn't like the show, where there was like some counter criticism. They were like, "Well, what the fuck do you want? We give you Acolyte and you don't like it. We give you Andor and you don't like it. What do you want?" It was something like a false dichotomy,
right?
Where I'm like, well, If you're like, I give you frozen soup, you don't like it. I give you scalding hot soup, and you don't like it. Like,
I give you spoiled soup, and you don't like it.
I have some ideas for where they could go with this, though, that would actually be productive for Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
Because it's such a departure from Star Wars. We were going like, this is kind of what you would do if the brand was super healthy and you wanted to, maybe do a Joker style thing and do a total departure. But man, like they gotta get like Star Wars right first, don't they? And then you can kind of like break the rules. But here's an idea: instead of doing season 3, season 4, and carrying this on and building in new plots and new massacres and squeezing more time between now and I think this dovetails just fine into Rogue One, right? You're good. Rogue One already was an unnecessary story. Take this cast, some of this cast, and this aesthetic and this feeling and all of it. A Mon Mothma led Bothan massacre movie or a 3-episode miniseries or something.
Oh.
But so now jump to you can't call it Andor anymore, but jump forward in time and give us a little, because we all like this.
Yeah, I want to see her dance some more. To get some rave.
I think you were the one who were like, is Star Wars Mon Mothma raving at a wedding?
Is that what that is now?
You got to give them credit though. Leslie Headland, she went for it. It didn't work out.
No.
These guys, they went for it. It pretty much worked out.
I think so. I'm super positive on the series now.
And don't you kind of feel too like a little bit, you kind of want to see what happens to some of these characters? Like now I kind of want to see what happens to Mon Mothma, because I don't know what really happens to Mon Mothma. Like I want to follow through now.
Yeah, she just shows up in Return of the Jedi. It's like, many Bothans died.
Many Bothans died to give us this information.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Wasn't she in Dark Forces or no X-Wing versus the TIE Fighter, right? Oh. She's in one of the video games.
Many innocent people in the surrounding city, as well as the rebel staff, were killed. Intelligence thinks that this may be an act of retaliation for the destruction of the Death Star.
I remember she showed up in like the EU books and stuff.
Yeah, because she was kind of like known as the leader of the Rebel Alliance. Yeah. It felt a little bit to me like the Snyder Cut in the sense that it felt like, okay, we're going to spend money on this. It's probably not going to make. I'm sure Disney knew like this is not going to be some rave success.
I have no idea what they think whenever they greenlight anything, because it doesn't seem like anything they greenlight will be a success.
Yeah, and so they probably just were like, make a series that people will probably like.
Talk about maybe.
Even if it like loses money, but does it lose money? Because this is the thing about the streaming dollars. Yeah. They bring in $8 billion with that streaming platform a year, and they get to spend it. Some budget on whatever, and like it doesn't necessarily have to bring in cable TV views, which would have been used to drive ads.
It just has to not repel people from this.
It has to maintain and boost subscription numbers annually, and so maybe sometimes the smarter strategy is just make something that people will think well of. But so yeah, I felt like they were kind of giving the fans what they needed. One other, just talking about like motivated filmmaking that's in it. When Padagast or whatever his name is, spoilers, kills himself. I love that they didn't use the blaster sound effect, the pew, because the pew would sound, it would be kind of goofy.
And the Wilhelm scream after.
Yeah. Okay, somebody do the re-edit.
But I thought that was cool too. That whole scene where the guy outside was like, just give him a moment." Like,
well, because he knew.
Yeah.
The sound effect instead that they used, it almost felt like the rumble, almost like the vibration of a cannon, like like a little earthquake went off in there. And so yeah, there's that kind of the heaviness of his death. That's good filmmaking. That's like, well, how can the sound design in this scene tell the story?
I like that they brought Forrest Whitaker back to be fucking insane.
I'll do whatever you want me to do.
It's like every time they bring him back, I think he swings a little harder.
Nobody's told me no.
But like goes so well with his character because he's like so radical.
Yeah.
Where there's like, we have to cut ties with you because you're just so crazy.
I mean, honestly, dude, like I would watch. Yeah. So first of all, I think that they should like dissuade themselves of having to do like a full-blown $250 million season. Instead, I would say, okay, we've now created a cool Star Wars world, this new kind of status quo where we can tell stories. And like, I'd be pretty into if they wanted to tell a story about events that are occurring during A New Hope with these characters, just so I can learn a little bit more about these characters and what happens to them all. Like, I'd be pretty down for that.
Or there's moves in between, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. That would be cool to see. Like, how does the Rebel Alliance like move on from certain events? That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, what does Yavin do after the Death Star is destroyed? Could be interesting. I think the Bothan thing that would be really cool too. I think they should do it. Hopefully they will. I'll watch because it was really nice. Once again, it's like Penguin. It's kind of rare for me to watch a show where I'm like into it.
Yeah, and I like when was it K2SO or whatever when he appears. It does.
The card game is so great.
Oh yeah, like I just love the design of that droid with the eye. You can see the little light bulbs move around. And
you know what else I thought was awesome? I actually really like this concept of like it's not the binge model of releasing everything all at once, and it's not the release an episode every week. They released 3 a week, and what made it special for me was that each 3 was a story.
Yeah, and it was a year. It was a year,
right? And so you also got to experience these kind of epic time jumps so the story actually felt like it was, covering ground. So by the time you get to the end, you're like, she's been in this ISB game for a while now. By the time you get to the last one, Deidre has been without Cyril for, over a year, 2 years or something.
And he's been getting promotions and Cassian's been on his thing.
He's going up in the world. And it's a haunting image. They'll lock her ass away,
Yeah. In the similar prison to what Andor was in.
There's probably, for me, there's like a fan cut in here somewhere where you could lose some of the chuffa and just tighten it all up a little bit better and really have something. But it's, I would say the greatest praise I could possibly give the show is I'm not like a huge Rogue One guy. It made me want to go back and watch Rogue One.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I did after it was done, was even just to see, like, I wanted to remember how people looked. But although it starts and Andor is questioning something, it's like, what? A weapon? How could this be? It's like, wait, he already knew.
Kyber crystals.
It's like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
But he already should know that. But although you could say he's playing the espionage thing where he's playing dumb.
Probably not.
Get more.
A weapon?
Weapon? What are you talking about?
No bueno.
No bueno.
Está bien.
¿Dónde está el baño?
Ándale. It'll forever be a mystery why they named him Andor when Endor exists in this universe. It's just a branding thing, man.
I mean, in the end, he's fine. I don't know why the show is called Andor.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah. But it's good. They told the whole story. And of course, nerds were saying that the baby she's holding at the end is this guy or that guy or this, No,
it's just,
I don't need to be theorizing about who the baby is. It's stupid.
It's stupid. Nobody cares.
That's not what this show is. This show is not, the show's not that, really.
Yeah. It was like, I think Tony Gilroy was like, oh, how come Tarkin was in it? It's like, if I wanted Tarkin to be in it, he'd be in it. But
yeah,
it's like, it doesn't
I'm telling a story. I love that. That's good. Tony Gilroy's smart, man. Maybe I should go back and watch Michael Clayton again. Maybe I was too young for it and I didn't get it. I remember being really fucking bored by it. That's the thing. This guy is a master filmmaker, and sometimes he's really boring.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's worth it. So, the people talk about slow burn, and that's fine. Sometimes it's too slow.
Sometimes he has like a psychic tentacle monster come into.
Yeah, I think Rogue One is fucked with. Right, because we Gareth Edwards got somebody else shadow directed by the end of it, and I think that movie went through a little bit of probably not the kind of insane reworking that we see today, but it's a smooth ride the way that Andor seems to be. Do you think so? Since you rewatched Rogue One, do you think Andor is better than Rogue One?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it makes me appreciate Rogue One more.
Yeah.
But it's a totally different thing. It's like
You know what I wanted to say about it? You know what would have been really cool? Instead of making Rogue One back in 2016 and all of us kind of forgetting about it, how awesome would it have been to lead all the way up to a movie event?
Yeah.
So we get all the way here, and now we're like, and next summer, Rogue One's coming out, and it's going to bring us all the way up to A New Hope. It'd be like, ooh, because then we get a little bit like Firefly, then Serenity, like where the movie tells the big part of the story. It's all fine. I mean, if you're young and you haven't seen any of it, you can watch it in any order you want. So but that would be the order I would recommend for sure. I wouldn't skip to Rogue One.
It's crazy that Rogue One was like 10 years ago or whatever.
I mean, this shit's moving, Ruth, as George Carlin once said.
Pardon me, do you have the time? When do you mean, now or when you ask me? This shit is moving, Ruth.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.